before you keep scrolling, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had one of those moments when someone suddenly crosses your mind for no obvious reason? You try to ignore it. You tell yourself it's just another random thought. But somehow, that feeling refuses to leave. It follows you throughout the day. It shows up in the quiet moments, in the songs you hear, in the memories you thought you had buried long ago. If that's been happening to you lately, stay with me. Because today's message isn't about predicting your future. It's about something that many people experience but rarely talk about. Sometimes, while we're convinced that a chapter is over, conversations are happening behind the scenes that we know nothing about. Sometimes the people connected to someone we care about begin asking questions, sharing memories, or wondering out loud what really happened. They aren't trying to rewrite the past. They're simply trying to understand it. And if you've been carrying a love story that feels unfinished, this message may resonate with your heart. Imagine this for a moment. Picture your soulmate sitting around a dinner table with the people who know them best. The conversation starts with something ordinary. Maybe someone asks how work is going. Maybe they talk about everyday life. But then, almost without warning, your name comes up. Not because anyone planned it. Not because someone was trying to force a conversation. But because some names leave an imprint that doesn't disappear as easily as people think. One family member remembers the way your soulmate smiled whenever they mentioned you. Another quietly asks, "Whatever happened between you two?" The room grows still. Your soulmate hesitates. For the first time in a long time, they're faced with a question they've been avoiding. Not because they don't know the answer, but because the answer still hurts. Maybe you've wondered if you've been forgotten. Maybe you've convinced yourself that your story ended the day communication stopped. Maybe you've spent countless nights asking why someone who once seemed to care could become so distant. Those are painful questions. And no one deserves to live trapped inside them forever. But here's something worth remembering. Silence doesn't always mean the absence of love. Sometimes it means the presence of fear. Sometimes it means regret. Sometimes it means someone is still trying to understand emotions they never learned how to express. Not every relationship ends because love disappears. Sometimes people walk away while still carrying feelings they don't know how to handle. Have you ever noticed how the strongest emotions are often the hardest to put into words? It's easy to say hello. It's easy to pretend everything is fine. But it's incredibly difficult to admit, "I still think about you." It's even harder to admit, "I wish I had handled things differently." That's why so many important conversations never happen. Not because the feelings aren't real, but because pride is loud. Fear is loud. Ego is loud. And the heart often speaks in whispers. Imagine your soulmate hearing someone close to them say, "You seemed happier back then." At first, they laugh it off. They change the subject. They pretend not to care. But those simple words stay with them long after the conversation ends. Because sometimes the people closest to us notice changes we refuse to admit ourselves. They notice when our smile isn't genuine. They notice when we stop talking about someone whose name used to come up every day. They notice when our eyes drift somewhere far away during conversations. The people who love us often see the truth before we're willing to face it ourselves. What if someone in your soulmate's family gently asked, "Have you ever thought about reaching out?" Not as pressure. Not as advice. Just as a question. One simple question. Questions have power. Sometimes they open doors that have been locked for years. Because once a question enters the mind, it doesn't always leave. What if I should call? What if I should apologize? What if they would actually want to hear from me? What if I let the best person in my life walk away because I was too afraid to be vulnerable? Those thoughts don't disappear overnight. They grow quietly. They become impossible to ignore. Life has a way of changing our perspective. The things that once seemed so important begin to lose their value. Winning arguments doesn't feel satisfying anymore. Being right becomes less important than making peace. Protecting your pride begins to feel far less meaningful than protecting the relationships that truly matter. Maybe that's why so many people look back years later and realize their greatest regret wasn't loving too much. It was loving too quietly. It was waiting too long. It was assuming there would always be another chance. The truth is, none of us know how much time we have. None of us know how many opportunities life will place in front of us. That's why honesty matters. That's why forgiveness matters. That's why courage matters. If you've been carrying hurt in your heart, don't let it convince you that your story is already finished. Every meaningful relationship goes through seasons. Some seasons bring closeness. Others bring distance. Some bring confusion. Others bring healing. No one can promise how another person's story will unfold. But we can choose how we respond to our own. Instead of living in fear, choose growth. Instead of waiting for someone else to change your life, become someone who continues growing whether they return or not. Because the healthiest love is never built on desperation. It's built on two people becoming whole enough to meet each other with honesty. And sometimes, the most unexpected conversations begin long before anyone picks up the phone. They begin in the quiet places of the heart. They begin with memories. With reflection. With questions that refuse to disappear. Maybe today's message simply reminds you that people are often more complicated than they appear. That silence doesn't always reveal the whole story. And that hope doesn't have to mean waiting forever. Sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones that happen entirely inside a person's own mind. No audience. No applause. No one to witness the tears that never fall. Just silence. And a heart asking questions it can no longer escape. Imagine your soulmate lying awake long after everyone else has gone to sleep. The house is quiet. The lights are off. But their thoughts refuse to rest. The conversation from earlier keeps replaying. Not because someone forced them to think about you, but because hearing your name awakens something they had carefully tried to bury. It's strange how one simple reminder can unlock an entire chapter of memories. Suddenly they remember the first time you made them laugh so hard they forgot every problem they were carrying. They remember conversations that lasted far longer than either of you intended. They remember the comfort of simply knowing someone understood them without needing an explanation. Those memories don't disappear. Life may cover them with responsibilities, with new routines, with distractions. But genuine memories have a way of waiting patiently until the heart is ready to look at them again. Maybe that's what has happened. Not a miracle. Not magic. Just an honest moment where someone stopped running from their own feelings. And sometimes, that is where every real change begins. People often believe love ends with one goodbye. But that's rarely how the human heart works. The heart doesn't follow calendars. It doesn't obey pride. It doesn't care how much time has passed. It simply remembers what mattered. Perhaps your soulmate has spent months convincing themselves they made the right decision. Repeating the same words over and over. It was for the best. They're happier without me. I should leave the past behind. Those words may sound convincing. But repeating something doesn't automatically make it true. Deep inside, another voice quietly whispers. What if I misunderstood everything? What if fear made the decision instead of love? What if the person I walked away from was actually the person I was meant to fight for? Those questions don't come with easy answers. They stay. They linger. They return during quiet mornings, long drives, sleepless nights, and ordinary moments that suddenly don't feel ordinary anymore. Maybe someone in their family noticed something unusual after that conversation. Maybe they noticed your soulmate becoming unusually quiet. Maybe they saw them staring out the window longer than usual. Maybe they watched them pick up their phone, unlock it, scroll through old contacts, then lock it again without sending a single message. That happens more often than people admit. There are countless unsent messages living inside people's phones. Words typed with trembling hands. Apologies erased before anyone could read them. Confessions deleted because fear won one more time. Simple sentences like, I hope you're doing okay. I've been thinking about you. I don't know if you'll even want to hear from me. Sometimes those words are written dozens of times, but never sent. Not because they aren't sincere, but because vulnerability feels risky. Reaching out means accepting uncertainty. It means risking silence. It means risking rejection. And for someone who already regrets the past, that can feel overwhelming. Yet something remarkable happens when regret becomes heavier than fear. Eventually, fear begins to lose its power. The question changes. Instead of asking, what if they reject me? The heart begins asking, what if I never try? That single shift changes everything. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is choosing honesty despite fear. Maybe your soulmate isn't there yet. Maybe they're only beginning that journey. But every meaningful decision starts with one small realization. The realization that pretending not to care is exhausting. Pretending requires energy. Pretending requires constant distractions. Pretending requires building walls around emotions that were never meant to stay trapped forever. Eventually, those walls begin to crack. Not because someone tears them down, but because truth has a way of finding light. Think about your own journey. Haven't there been moments when you surprised yourself? Moments when you realized you were stronger than you thought. Moments when you forgave someone you believed you never could. People change. Not overnight. Not perfectly. But they do. Growth often happens quietly. It's invisible until one day someone responds differently than they would have months before. Maybe that's where your soulmate is now. Learning lessons life could only teach through distance. Understanding that love isn't measured by grand promises. It's measured by consistency. By honesty. By showing up when it's difficult. By choosing communication instead of assumption. By admitting mistakes instead of defending them. Those lessons are never easy. But they're valuable. Because the people who truly grow don't just become better partners. They become better human beings. If you've been carrying disappointment, don't let it convince you that everyone stays the same forever. Some people never change. That's true. But others experience moments that reshape the way they see everything. A difficult loss. An unexpected conversation. A season of loneliness. A reminder that life moves much faster than we expect. Those experiences have humbled countless people. They've inspired apologies that once seemed impossible. They've restored friendships that looked completely broken. They've reunited families who believed reconciliation could never happen. Human hearts are capable of remarkable transformation. That's why it's important not to build your future entirely around someone else's choices. Build your future around your own healing. Become the kind of person who chooses peace regardless of who stays or leaves. Because when your heart is healthy, you'll recognize healthy love. You won't have to chase it. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to convince someone to see your worth. The right connection doesn't require you to abandon yourself. It invites you to become even more yourself. Perhaps that's the deepest message today. Whether this story reminds you of someone specific or simply encourages you to reflect on your own journey, let it remind you that healing is never wasted. Love is never wasted. Growth is never wasted. Every lesson prepares your heart for whatever comes next. And sometimes, the conversation that changes everything doesn't begin with a phone call. It begins with one person finally becoming honest with themselves. Because every meaningful reunion, every sincere apology, every second chance, starts there. Maybe that's why this message found you today. Not to convince you that every relationship is meant to be restored. Not to promise that every person will come back. But to remind you of something that is easy to forget when you've been carrying disappointment for a long time. Your story is still being written. The chapters you can see are not the only chapters that exist. There are conversations you'll never hear. Prayers you'll never know someone whispered. Moments of reflection that happen far away from your eyes. And while you cannot control another person's heart, you can choose what kind of person you become while life continues unfolding. If your soulmate truly has been reflecting, if they have been thinking about the past, if people close to them have encouraged them to be honest, then the next step belongs to them. Not to you. You don't have to chase what is capable of finding you. You don't have to abandon your peace trying to force an answer. Love that is built to last doesn't grow from pressure. It grows from truth. It grows from courage. It grows when two people are finally willing to stop pretending. Perhaps today is simply an invitation for you to release the weight you've been carrying. Release the endless what-ifs. Release the belief that your worth depends on someone else's decision. Release the fear that you've somehow missed your only chance at happiness. Because your future has never been built on one single moment. Your future is built one faithful step at a time. One choice to heal. One choice to forgive. One choice to keep believing that your life still holds beautiful surprises. The truth is, every person watching this video has a different story. Some of you are hoping for reconciliation. Some of you are trying to let go. Some of you are waiting for a love you've never experienced before. And some of you simply needed someone to remind you that you are not forgotten. Wherever you are in your journey, don't lose yourself while waiting for someone else to find themselves. Keep growing. Keep praying. Keep becoming the person God created you to be. Because when your identity is rooted in His love, no rejection can define you. No delay can destroy your hope. No silence can erase your value. The Bible reminds us in Jeremiah 29 verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Notice what God doesn't say. He doesn't promise that every relationship will unfold exactly as we expect. But He does promise that He is working toward a future filled with hope. Sometimes His greatest blessings arrive in ways we never imagined. Sometimes He restores what was broken. Sometimes He leads us towards something entirely new. But in every season, He remains faithful. If someone is truly meant to be part of your future, honesty will eventually matter more than pride. Healing will matter more than fear. Love will matter more than ego. And if that day comes, you'll want to meet it with a heart that has been strengthened by grace, not hardened by bitterness. Until then, live your life fully. Laugh without guilt. Dream without fear. Serve others with kindness. Spend time with the people who genuinely love you. Thank God for the blessings you already have while trusting Him with the ones you cannot yet see. Because the waiting season is never empty. It is often where God does His deepest work. He teaches patience. He teaches wisdom. He teaches discernment. Most importantly, He reminds us that our greatest source of peace has never been another human being. It has always been Him. So if this message resonated with your heart today, take a quiet moment before you leave. Close your eyes for just a few seconds. Take a deep breath. And simply pray. Lord, if there are conversations happening that I cannot see, I place them in your hands. If reconciliation is part of your plan, prepare both hearts with wisdom, humility, and truth. And if you have something even greater ahead for me, give me the faith to walk toward it without fear. Help me never confuse waiting with losing hope, and never allow my heart to settle for less than the love you desire for me. In Jesus' name, Amen. Remember this. Your value is not determined by who stayed. Your purpose is not limited by who left. And your future is not defined by yesterday's heartbreak. God is still writing your story. Keep trusting Him. Keep walking in faith. Keep believing that what He has prepared for you will arrive at exactly the right time. And when it does, you'll understand why every lesson, every delay, every tear, and every unanswered question became part of a much greater testimony. If this message encouraged you today, write these simple words in the comments. God's timing is perfect. Not because commenting changes your future, but because declaring your faith can encourage someone else who feels like giving up today. If this message brought peace to your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need hope right now. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Until next time, may God fill your heart with His perfect peace, guide every step you take, and remind you every single day that you are deeply loved, never forgotten, and always held in His faithful hands. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next message.